Mary Louise Cook here. Welcome on into another episode of FCS All-In. In store for you today is segments from the conferences around the FCS and contributions from national correspondents Sam Herder of Hero Sports and Craig Haley of Stats Perform. Let's go all in as we kick off Week 10.
It's a busy 7-game Saturday around CAA football, including 5 conference contests. William & Mary, which improved to 4-1 in CAA play after a 31-18 victory at 4th-ranked Villanova last week, heads back on the road to play Delaware. The Tribe defense turned in a dominant performance against the Wildcats. It's led by junior Nate Lynn, who tops the league with 10.5 sacks and is having a special season, according to his head coach, Mike London.
Been a former D-line coach and have, coached that position, and he has all the requisite skills to be really, really good, and he is. He's an integral part of our defense, but he's a special player, and he's been demonstrating that from the games that he's been able to play in.
Delaware is coming off a win over Dixie State last Saturday. Quarterback Zach Gwynn threw for 215 yards in that game and continues to improve each week, according to head coach Danny Rocco.
Zach Gwynn, probably played his most complete game, completed maybe 19 balls and, didn't turn it over. I thought he really looked comfortable out there. And showed a lot of poise. So I think he did some things that really showed growth.
Villanova and Elon are still very much in the mix for the CAA title despite losses last week, setting up a big game for both teams on Saturday. After facing William & Mary's top-ranked rushing attack last week, Wildcats head coach Mark Ferrante is focused on his defense slowing down Elon's CAA best passing attack.
So we're switching gears from the CAA leading rushing attack to now the CAA leading passing attack. So, we got to do a good job, trying to contain. You're never going to stop a guy like Davis Cheek and the way he puts the ball where it needs to be and so on and so forth.
Villanova's defense has been among the best in FCS all season long, and Phoenix head coach Tony Trisciani knows it won't be easy for his team to move the ball.
Defensively, they've got all conference performers at all 3 levels. Malik Fisher up front, Forrest Ryan, that linebacker, and Christian Benford in the back. So, it's a defense that does a great job stopping the run, getting to the quarterback, and creating takeaways.
Here's a look at Saturday's schedule around CAA football.
This is the WAC report for FCS All-In. I'm Kendra Sheehan. We're now in the month of November, which means the FCS playoffs are right around the corner. Number 1 ranked Sam Houston is an undefeated 7-0. The Bearcats are 3-0 in the WAC with just 2 conference games remaining. The first of those matchups is on Saturday as Sam Houston hosts Dixie State. This will be the first ever matchup between the Bearcats and the Trailblazers. This game kicks off at noon Central on ESPN+. Stephen F. Austin is sitting at 2nd place in the WAC after their big win against Abilene Christian. The Lumberjacks have Eastern Kentucky coming into the friendly confines of Homer Bryce Stadium. The Colonels are ranked number 25 in the FCS. These 2 teams played last fall with the Jacks coming out on top 24-6. This is a 4 p.m. kickoff local time on ESPN+. Abilene Christian will be on the road in Jacksonville, Alabama to take on the Gamecocks. This game is part of the WAC ASUN Challenge Series. This is the Wildcats' first ever trip to Jacksonville. It's also ACU's final road game of the season. Abilene Christian and Jacksonville State will start at 1 p.m. Central Time on ESPN+. Also this week, Lamar hits the road to Tarleton. The Cardinals are looking for their first conference win of the season. The Texans check in with a record of 1-2 in the WAC and 3-1 mark at Memorial Stadium in Stephenville. This will be the first ever meeting between the 2 schools. It's a 6 p.m. kickoff on ESPN+. For FCS All-In, I'm Kendra Sheehan.
Heading into Week 10, Sacramento State moved into a tie for first place in the Big Sky football standings with Montana State as the Hornets extended their winning streak to 5 games. Montana State is in at number 4 in both national polls, where they are joined by 5 other Big Sky schools in the top 25. Montana survived an upset scare from Southern Utah last weekend as Justin Ford picked up his 6th straight interception in the last 6 games to help the Grizz earn the 2019 win. And Weber State Wildcat Rashid Shaheed broke the FCS record for most kickoff return touchdowns last weekend against Idaho State, earning 7 for his career. Shaheed also became the 4th player in program history to eclipse the 5,000 career all-purpose yard mark at Weber State. I spoke with him earlier this week about his success. Let's take a look. Rashid, you made NCAA history with your 7th career kickoff return for a touchdown against Idaho State. With all you've accomplished in your career so far, where does that accomplishment rank?
I definitely say that's first on the accomplishment list. It's a great feeling to have this accomplishment and just share it with my team and to be able to share it with these guys. It's been an amazing experience, and I'm just happy that I was able to do it, in the way that it was, and it's been a fun journey.
What do you think is setting you apart this season, and specifically in the Idaho State game?
I feel like what's setting us apart is that, on special teams we play together each and every week. We come up with new plans to help us succeed, and we all buy into it. We try to use special teams to our advantage each and every week. It's kind of a forgotten gem in each and every game, and we try to just come out and execute. And we know if we do that, then we can impact the game. Anytime we get a chance to impact the game on special teams, it always helps out a lot.
You can catch the full interview with Rashid on Big Sky social media. And with Week 10 set to kick off, here's a rundown of all the action, highlighted by number 4 Montana State and number 5 Eastern Washington. And that's all for the Big Sky. Be sure to follow at Big Sky FB for around-the-clock coverage.
Welcome to Valley Football's Extra Point. The meat grinder that is the Missouri Valley schedule continues this week with a pair of top 25 matchups. For the 13th straight year, North Dakota State and South Dakota State meet in the Dakota Marker matchup as ranked teams. The Bison will put their unbeaten record to the test and will try to avenge last spring's 27-17 home loss to the Jackrabbits. South Dakota State snapped a 3-game losing skid in the series in that win, although NDSU still leads the Dakota Marker series 10-7. Red Hot Northern Iowa was named the FCS National Team of the Week. The Panthers are coming off back-to-back top 10 wins. The latest, a 23-16 come-from-behind win over number 3 Southern Illinois. UNI rallied from 10 down as the Panthers continue to be a turnover-hawking machine. Caden Hotelling responsible for 2 takeaways in the SIU win. UNI jumped all the way to number 13 in the rankings following the Southern win. That was after upsetting 6th-ranked South Dakota State the week prior. Western Illinois quarterback Connor Sampson continues to rewrite the Leatherneck record books. The senior signal caller is the new program record holder for single-season pass completions with 253 and counting. Throwing for nearly 300 yards in Western's come-from-behind win over in-state rival Illinois State. It marked the Leathernecks' first home win of the season. Sampson previously broke Western's mark for single-season passing yards with 2,359. This week's schedule features 2 top 25 matchups that have major playoff and conference title implications.
FCS All-In rolls on here with our National Correspondents segment. I'm Bryson Lester, and I'm joined today by Craig Haley from Stats Perform and Sam Herder from Hero Sports. Gentlemen, thanks for being here with us on another great FCS football Saturday. Let's go ahead and dive right in here. Craig, a lot of shakeup in the top 25 this week after some big-time upsets last weekend. What do you think of how the newest poll shook out? And, as you look across the FCS landscape here, what's got your eye nationally with the poll?
Yeah, good question, Bryce. And I mean, obviously you mentioned, Southern Illinois was number 3 and they lost. Villanova was number 4 and they lost. We see it all the time. I mean, there was at least one top 5 team every week on 5 Saturdays in October that lost, and that's what conference play does. I mean, I think what stands out with the poll, that top 10 is still so strong. I mean, I think voters are confident in the power programs. I mean, you always see Sam Houston, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, Eastern Washington. Those teams are always there. And I think that stands out. Maybe Southeastern Louisiana is kind of the outlier in that mix. They're at number 6, but really having a good year in the Southland. And this is definitely their best team in a while. So it just stands out to me, though, that how confident voters are in the top power programs.
So we hit on the poll there, Sam. Let's dive into bracketology a little early this week because, when we have big upsets like that, it can kind of shift how we think about how the FCS bracket can land out. What kind of impact did those upsets last weekend have on, what kind of bracket we could see here coming up soon?
Yeah, I think, with teams like Southern Illinois and Villanova both dropping their first FCS losses, they dropped a few spots in the seeds, but they still are sitting pretty good if they win out as far as being a 6, 7, or 8 seed. But with that, I think William and Mary, they rose into being in the playoff picture with that, upset win. Same thing with Northern Iowa. They rose from being, maybe an unseeded team to now being a seeded team, even with 3 overall losses with back-to-back wins against highly ranked teams. And they could end up bumping out maybe a team like Sacramento State, who's could finish 8-0 in the Big Sky standings, but maybe only have 1 ranked win compared to Northern Iowa, who could have 4 ranked wins, 1 being against Sacramento State, even with 3 losses. And so that's we'll see how things shake out in these next 3 weeks. But there's been a few changes in the last week, and then with today's slates of games, I'm sure there'll be plenty more shakeups as well.
Craig, let's transition a little bit here from talking about this year's bracket to the bigger picture overall. When you look at the FCS playoff, you got 24 teams. Is that the right number? Are we at the right number of teams for the FCS playoff? Would you like to see it bigger? Would you like to see it less? Is 24 the number we should be at here?
I believe 24 is the right number. I mean, this season, there's 128 FCS programs. It's the most ever, but we've been at 120 plus for over 20 years. So I think there's 2 reasons for 24. One, it doesn't water down the at-large field where you're just constantly having 6 and 5 teams getting in. And 2, the 8 seeds get, a bye in that first weekend. They don't play, they get some rest over Thanksgiving, not playing. I think that's a big component. In the spring, we had 16 teams. And, the talk of always about going to 32, those kind of brackets wouldn't give you a bye for the top seeds. And I think that's a big reward when you're trying to rest bodies after the long regular season. And again, the at large, you want the right teams in.
Sam, as we look around the country, we got a lot of interesting battles for conference titles going on. As you look across the different leagues, which of those conference titles intrigue you the most with those going after him?
I think the SOCON is going to get really interesting in the final 3 weeks. You have Mercer, ETSU, VMI, and also Chattanooga with 1 loss in the conference standings. There's a big game today. VMI is going to ETSU. Another one of those teams, Mercer, has a bye this week, but their last 2 games are against Chattanooga and ETSU. And so those 4 teams are going to see each other in one way or another these final 3 weeks, and that should shape up to be a pretty fun, race to the conference title, and also just to see, which teams out of that conference grab bids into the playoffs.
Craig, talking about storylines across the conference, we've been talking about the SWAC here. You think the SWAC will end up within that large bid this year? That's kind of one of the storylines we've been tracking on.
That is a good one. You're right. The SWAC hasn't been in the playoffs since 1997. They moved to a conference championship game in 99. I think the conference championship game makes a lot of sense for that conference. And then they move on to the Celebration Bowl. They've never won an FCS playoff game. Now, should that hurt them? Probably not if you're just looking at this year. But at the same time, that sits in the back of your mind. I think that the scenario for that conference, and it's a good year for the conference, would be Jackson State and Florida A&M in the East just winning out. Jackson State would go to the SWAC championship game. Florida A&M would be like 9-2 and really in contention for an at-large bid. I think that's the scenario they need as a conference. But, you know, the way it works is they do have regular season games over Thanksgiving weekend at times. You know, that hurts them with the playoff, you know, being eligible for the at-large. You know, you're also getting a non-division winner. It could be the second best team in the league, but it's still, you know, not a division winner. You know, the two divisions send their champions to the championship game. So I think, yes, it's possible, but really the only scenario would be if Florida A&M is the one.
Another interesting storyline as we come down the stretch here. All right, guys, I'll give you both an opportunity in a minute to talk about the games you got circled today, but I want to break down a couple specific matchups here as we head into a big day of FCS football on this Saturday. Sam, let's go ahead and start with you. We're going to start with North Dakota State, South Dakota State. The Dakota marker is up for grabs today. Who wins this matchup and how do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably as close to a 50-50 game as you can have, and have been going back and forth most of this week on it. But I think I'm leaning NDSU right now. The Jacks still have some key players out with injuries that don't appear they'll be coming back today for today's game. And I also think, you know, basically this matchup always comes down to who wins on the line of scrimmage. And in the spring, you know, it was definitely South Dakota State's offensive line that basically overwhelmed NDSU's defensive line. But this fall, I think the Bison defensive line is playing much better. The South Dakota State offensive line, despite returning all 5 starters, hasn't quite been at that level as they were in the spring, lacking maybe some consistency there. And so I think the Bison have the defensive line to at least slow down Pierre Strong Jr., that running attack, and also get after Chris Oladokin, the quarterback for South Dakota State, and make him pretty uncomfortable.
Big one today up in the Dakotas. All right, Craig, let's come out here to Big Sky Country a little bit. We got Montana State and Eastern Washington going head-to-head today. Big matchup in the Big Sky Conference here. Who wins and what will it take to do it?
Well, as Sam mentioned, this is like a 50-50 kind of game as well. I think you have to favor, though, Eastern Washington being at home. I mean, they did win 20 in a row before that loss to Weber. You know, they've won 7 in a row in the series, which I find surprising because Montana State's been a terrific program. I just think, you know, this is the time of the year where we have to see Eastern's defense step up. I mean, we know they're going to score. They're going to pass the ball. I mean, they're phenomenal with that. But that's also a strength of Montana State, that they're top 10 and against the pass, against, you know, scoring, you know, giving up yardage. If Montana State can run the ball well, that's a whole different story. And they probably have a shot here. I just think you favor Eastern Washington just because they're so good at home.
All right, we hit 2 big ones, but there's a lot of exciting games today, Sam. We'll go back to you. What other contests have your eye today across the FCS landscape?
Yeah, I touched on the SOCON a bit earlier, but VMI going to ETSU is a huge game for that conference title race. VMI won it in the spring, looked like they would be favorites to win it again, but then ETSU maybe changed some minds with their big win against Vanderbilt out of the SEC. Now both have suffered 1 loss in the SOCON, and so this will obviously shake things up a little bit. And then also Southeastern Louisiana is going to Incarnate Word. SLU has a chance to be a 6, 7, 8 seed if they do go undefeated, but they will have, you know, looks like their only chance at a ranked win against UIW, and so it's an important game for SLU, and it's obviously important for UIW as well. They lost a couple of weeks ago to McNeese, which possibly could hurt their chance for an at-large bid, just because they might be lacking those quality wins as well. So a big opportunity for both teams in the conference race.
Good ones there. Craig, what else you got your eye on today as we roll into games?
Yeah, I mean, the big one in the Northeast Conference, you know, Sacred Heart at St. Francis. Sacred Heart's the defending champ, and they've really overcome the injury to Julius Chestnut, their great running back, with Malik Grant, who's leading the nation in rushing. Missouri State and Southern Illinois in the Missouri Valley. I mean, those teams are always in tight games in the fourth quarter, so that should be fun. And we did have our first coaching change in the FCS for the season. I mean, Alabama State changed, Travis Pearson's their defensive coordinator. He's now the interim coach. He's got a tough first one this afternoon. You know, they're at Prairie View, who leads the West. So I think there's just great conference matchups all around today.
Good stuff. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Before we go here, obviously want to give you each a second to plug what you've been working on. Sam, we'll go ahead and start with you. Obviously, I'm reading bracketology every week, but what else can FCS fans be on the lookout for?
Yeah, bracketology is usually coming out every Tuesday, and that'll obviously get, I think this week's was over 2,000 words, just because there's some more information packed in there, and so that'll come out until Selection Sunday, obviously. And also sticking with the playoffs, just starting to look at conference specific races to bids. Whether it's, does the SOCON get 3 or 2 teams in, which teams are front runners to get those seeds? Does the Valley get 5 teams in? Does the CAA get 3 or 4 teams in? Is it possible for the Big Sky to get 6 teams in? What would have to happen, for that to happen, I guess. And so kind of going into a more specific conference approach and looking at those conferences and what they need to do and what the teams need to do in their outlook for playoff bids.
Awesome. And Craig, over to you, one of the busiest guys in the FCS. We're getting close to awards season, so I know things are starting to really ramp up for you too.
I think you hit it there. Next week, Walter Payton and Buck Buchanan watch list. I think we're going to update them. We did the Jerry Rice last week. We'll have the Eddie Robinson for the coach coming up soon. We're almost at the end of the regular season, and we have that vote for these key individual awards right after the season at Stats Perform.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for your time. I'm Bryson Lester, signing off for Craig Haley and Sam Herder as FCS All-In rolls on.
This weekend's ASUN Conference football slate features number 19, Eastern Kentucky, in a road contest against Stephen F. Austin. The Colonels are looking to remain undefeated in AQ7 matchups and are back on the road for the 4th time this season with a trip to Stephen F. Austin. EKU and Stephen F. Austin are meeting for the 2nd time in 2 seasons, with the Colonels making their first ever trip to Texas. EKU is looking for their 6th consecutive win, which would tie the program's longest winning streak since 2014. Stephen F. Austin has won its last 2 contests and sit at 1-2 in AQ7 play. The game will air on ESPN Plus live, with kickoff scheduled for 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Central Arkansas returns to the Stripes for their homecoming in a matchup with Texas Wesleyan. Riding a 2-game win streak, the Bears are coming off a dominant performance in their first ever meeting against Jacksonville State. Freshman running back Darius Hale rushed for 125 yards on 25 carries, achieving another ASUN Freshman of the Week honor. Defensive back Christian Kane was named Defensive Player of the Week after he collected 9 tackles and returned an interception 87 yards for a touchdown. Kickoff against Texas Wesleyan is set for 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Jacksonville State plays its final home game of the 2021 season against Abilene Christian. This meeting will be the first ever contest between the 2 programs, as the Gamecocks seek to win their 2nd AQ7 matchup and close out their season with a winning record at home. Kickoff at Burgess Snowfield is set for 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This AQ7 matchup will be broadcasted on ESPN Plus.
Lafayette remained in the hunt for the Patriot League Championship with a huge comeback win in Week 9 at Georgetown. The Leopards trailed 17-0 in the first quarter, but Selwyn Simpson's 55-yard touchdown run brought them back to life, and 10 unanswered points in the second half put Lafayette up for good at 24-23. Georgetown attempted a game-winning field goal with 7 seconds left, but Lafayette blocked the kick and held on for the win. Hi, I'm Maria Trivalpiece for FCS All-In. Thanks to that big comeback, the next 2 weeks are pivotal in deciding the Patriot League Championship, and it starts on Saturday with Holy Cross and Lafayette. The 3-0 Crusaders host the Leopards on ESPN Plus at 12:30 p.m. in Week 10. The other 3-0 league team, Fordham, also plays at 12:30 at Georgetown. Lehigh and Bucknell round out Saturday's game with a 1 p.m. kick. Should Fordham and Holy Cross win this week, that would set up a Patriot League Championship game the following week at Fordham. In that scenario, Colgate would still be in the running for a share of the title, but the Raiders would need Fordham to beat Holy Cross in Week 11, and then Colgate would have to beat Fordham in Week 12. Colgate moved to 3-1 with its 33-10 win over Bucknell in Week 9. The Raiders scored 33 unanswered points thanks to a pair of touchdown runs by Michael Brescia and John Cox. The two combined for 125 of Colgate's 235 yards rushing in the win. Matthew Sluka also ran for a pair of touchdowns in Week 9, and both came in the fourth quarter to help Holy Cross pull away from Lehigh. The Mountain Hawks were within 2 early in the fourth quarter, but Sluka's 4-yard score with 5:40 left capped the 17-0 run to lead the Crusaders to the 31-12 win. All 3 Week 10 games will be live on ESPN+. Follow all the action and catch the highlights on Twitter at Patriot League TV, and we'll see you back here next week.
Welcome to the Big South Network studio. I'm Mark Bryant with some news and notes as we get you ready for kickoff. Kennesaw State and Monmouth continue their hold on first place in the conference as both teams are 4-0 in the standings. The Owls visit Robert Morris today at noon and are seeking their third 5-0 Big South start since 2017. Monmouth has won 14 straight Big South games and hosts North Alabama today at 1. The Hawks last opened the league slate 5-0 during their title run of 2019. Hampton quarterback Jet Duffy set a Big South single-game record with 5 rushing touchdowns last week at Robert Morris. He broke the old mark of 4 that was reached 16 times. Duffy also matched the overall league record for most touchdowns scored in a game, which was set in 2011. Charleston Southern quarterback Jack Chambers has amassed more than 300 yards of total offense in a Big South record 5 consecutive games. He's averaging just over 377 offensive yards during his record streak, and is pacing ahead of the Big South single-season record of 346 yards per game. Chambers has thrown for more than 200 yards and has surpassed 100 rushing yards in each of his last 2 games. Kennesaw State has won 6 straight games and is 7-1 on the season. Quarterback Xavier Shepard led the Owls to a 34-30 comeback win over Gardner-Webb last week with a program record 4 touchdown passes. Shepard leads the Big South with 12 rushing touchdowns, and his next passing score will make him just the 3rd quarterback in Big South history with at least 10 rushing touchdowns and 10 passing touchdowns in the same season. Lastly, Gardner-Webb's Nari Gaither caught 10 passes for 91 yards and a touchdown last week at Kennesaw State, becoming the first running back with double-digit receptions in a game. Gaither also rushed for 116 yards and 2 scores and finished the afternoon with 207 all-purpose yards. That's this week's Big South Football Update. Enjoy all the games today, and be sure to follow Big South Football on ESPN Plus and on social media at Big South Sports.
What's up, everybody? Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, back with you once again for a Week 8 Ivy League football preview as we take a look around the Ancient 8, as there's some great games lined up on the schedule. But first, let's take a look at the Ivy League standings, and as you can see, there's only one team right now, the Princeton Tigers, that remain undefeated, both in league play, but also on the season as a whole. They're playing some fantastic football down in New Jersey. So let's kick off this week's preview by starting on Friday night, where the biggest game on the schedule, in my opinion, involves those undefeated Princeton Tigers and the Dartmouth Big Green, who's coming off a big win last weekend against the Harvard Crimson. When you look at Princeton and what they bring to the table, they're playing great defensively. I think they found their groove the last couple of weeks defensively, but their offense really has to pick it up. This was a high-flying offense we saw earlier in the season. They have to do much better if they want to knock off the Big Green. And for Dartmouth, they played great defense all throughout the season. But when you look at their quarterback, Derek Kyler, if he can bring his A game once again, when they've asked him to throw the football, he has been able to be excellent and efficient and has done a great job in keeping his offense on pace. He had a great game last week, and if he can bring his A game against this Tigers defense, they have a great chance of coming away victorious. Next, we take a look at Yale versus Brown, and the Bulldogs are on fire right now offensively. They're on a 2-game win streak, and their offense is doing a great job in putting the ball in the paint. 30 points a game in both contests. They even got a special teams touchdown last weekend in their victory over Columbia. So their offense is definitely getting it done out there on the field. And for Brown, in this matchup, it's going to be about third down defense and red zone defense. If they can get stops throughout the drive or stop these guys inside the red zone, we know their offense can score. So I think situational football will be key for Brown to come away with the win. But this is going to be a fantastic game nonetheless. Cornell heads down to Philadelphia to take on the Penn Quakers, and for Cornell, it's about finding small victories. They've played well all throughout the season, but they got to find a way to stack those positive plays on top of one another, and one guy is a walking big play himself, and that's wide receiver Thomas Glover. If they can find ways to get him the football early, they have a great chance. And when you look at Penn, I'm a big fan of Isaiah Malcolm, their outstanding tailback. If you're good enough, you're big enough. Size is not a skill. He's 5'5", 170, but he plays like someone that's 6'2", 240 with how he dominates the game from the running back position. And lastly, we have a great matchup on the schedule once again between Harvard and Columbia. Harvard comes into this ball game, loses of 2 straight games because their offense just hadn't been able to find its groove or find its rhythm. And we know this is an offense that can put the ball inside the paint whenever they want to, but their run game hasn't been successful the last couple of weeks, and we know they have tremendous talent in the backfield, so they got to find a way to get that offense back on track. We know Columbia's offense is always going to be on track with their duo at running back and Ryan Young, who was toting that rock last week rather well, and Dante Miller, who can also hurt you on special teams. He's an all-purpose dynamo. Their defense burned the tape from last week. I don't think that was Columbia defense so we're not going to talk about last week defensively, but if they could play better defense against Harvard, they have a chance to get the win. So that's a wrap for the Week 8 edition of the Ivy League Football Preview. For more Ivy League football content, keep it locked here on ESPN+, and we will see you guys in week number 9.
Ohio Valley Conference member institutions are vitally important to the communities in which they are located. They are a source of pride and excitement, a rallying cry for the community who supports them not only on game days, but beyond. On the reverse, OVC coaches and student athletes know how important it is for them to give back to those communities that support them so well.
I mean, it's just so important in life. Like, it's not about you, and serving others is just one of the biggest skill sets and growth that you got to have as a young person. And, certainly being a Division I football program in a town, like, you have an obligation, but also an opportunity to invest deeply in our town, in our region. And so whether it's with kids or serving in other areas, so that's personal to me, but our players love it. They love doing community service, and, I'm proud of the things that we've done in the past.
We've been on multiple community service events, like we've gone to help at the nursing homes, food drives, whatever it is. Anytime they offer it, it's not even ever been mandatory. It's always been just volunteer, and guys just take advantage of the opportunities that are given. And we just love helping out the community, because at the end of the day, we're helping each other out. They'll, in the end, help us out by coming to support us at our games. And it's just the love for the community. So we're just helping each other out.
We've helped Soup for Souls. We helped the Need Line, which are 2 organizations that really help needy people as far as food, in our community, and they've jumped in and helped. We've had tremendous response from our guys. I think we're up above 20 or so guys going over to help. And the thing I like about our guys, it's not about taking a picture and getting on Twitter or whatever. They really want to help people. They care about people, and they care about this community, and they want to be involved, and they want to help.
I really believe that it's an important thing for the young men to learn is to when they have this incredible platform for 4 or 5 years of their life to be a Division I athlete, to truly affect young people in their communities, to be role models. But it's incredibly important that we want to be an integral part of this community. The Charleston community completely grew up around Eastern Illinois University. It values everything that has to do with Eastern Illinois University. And when the Charleston community is thriving, Eastern Illinois thrives, and vice versa. We've got to be out. We've got to be visible, and we've got to give back. And then that in turn breeds a broader sense of community. It wants these young people to come to the games, be in the stands, be at our Panther Prowl before the games, all the fun things that really make it a great college football experience for young men. So it's truly, we want to give back, but it truly works kind of circularly for everyone to get a positive out of it.
By giving back, OVC student athletes are making long-lasting positive impacts in each of their communities.
Next up is an inside look as to what's going on in the MEAC.
With 3 Saturdays remaining in the regular season, there are 2 undefeated teams in MEAC play. South Carolina State improved to 3-0 in the conference this past Saturday with a 27-24 win at North Carolina Central, a game in which Kendrell Flowers rushed for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns, and quarterback Corey Fields Jr. passed for 2 scores. Norfolk State is 2-0 in the MEAC and on a 6-game winning streak after Saturday's 31-20 win over Morgan State. MEAC preseason Offensive Player of the Year Jawan Carter passed for 368 yards, the highest single game total in the MEAC this season, and 3 touchdowns, while J.J. Davis ran for 105 yards, had 94 receiving yards, and accounted for 2 scores. Delaware State is in the thick of the league race as well, after the Hornets took care of Howard this past Saturday, 30-23 in Alumni Stadium. Jared Lewis threw for 4 touchdowns in the victory. Thursday night saw Delaware State and Morgan State square off at Hughes Stadium, live on ESPN2, to open this week's MEAC Gridiron action. Visit MEACsports.com for the box score and recap from that contest. This Saturday, MEAC Countdown to Kickoff presented by Coca-Cola returns, this time live from Durham, North Carolina, in advance of the Norfolk State-North Carolina Central contest at O'Kelly Riddick Stadium. Join hosts Charlie Neal and Nicole Hutchison as they talk to both head coaches and preview the entire weekend's action. Tune into the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN Plus at 12 p.m. to catch MEAC Countdown to Kickoff presented by Coca-Cola. Then catch the Spartans and Eagles in action at 2 p.m. live on ESPN3, then rebroadcast at 10:30 p.m. on ESPNU. Also on Saturday afternoon, Howard will make the trip to Orangeburg, South Carolina to take on South Carolina State in a 2 p.m. kickoff on the MEAC Digital Network on ESPN+. For more information on MEAC football, as well as the conference's 15 other sponsored sports, please visit MEACsports.com. You can also follow the MEAC on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at MEAC Sports, and subscribe to the MEAC Digital Network on YouTube.
Let's take a look at last week's action in the PFL, as well as a preview to Week 10.
With another week of action in the Pioneer Football League in the books, here's a look around the conference. Davidson moved atop the standings after a win over previously undefeated Morehead State. The Wildcats took down MSU 29-22 in the road contest. Morehead State took a 6-0 lead to start the game, but Davidson followed with a pair of touchdowns to take a 13-6 lead. The game went back and forth until the fourth quarter when back-to-back rushing touchdowns by Coy Williams and Dylan Sparks put the Wildcats up for good. San Diego moved to number 2 in the standings at 5-1 after a win over Valparaiso. Valpo held a 14-0 lead in the first quarter, but USD rallied to pull within a point just before halftime. The Torero secured the game winner with 1:15 remaining on a run by Mason Randall to secure the victory. The San Diego defense was the star of the day, holding the Beacons to just 56 yards, including just 2 passing yards. Will Buck was one of the highlights of the defense, picking up 3 sacks in the game. He was named the PFL's Defensive Player of the Week. Valparaiso's Ben Neisner was put to work in the game, punting 7 times for an average of 48.7 yards. 3 of those went for more than 50 yards. He earned Special Teams Player of the Week honors after this performance. In other action, St. Thomas defeated Marist 27-7 at home. The Tommies jumped out to a 13-0 first quarter lead, which held up throughout. Marist cut into the deficit in the second quarter with a rushing touchdown by Austin Day, but did not find the end zone again. St. Thomas's Adebayo ran for 191 yards and a pair of touchdowns in the contest. Dayton won in thrilling fashion over Butler as Zap Rumke intercepted a pass with 27 seconds remaining to close out the 38-31 victory. Jake Chisholm was key to the offensive success, running for 157 yards and 3 touchdowns, while recording 55 receiving yards and another score. He earned Offensive Player of the Week recognition. In the final game of the week, Stetson took down Presbyterian 56-14. The Hatters scored the game's first 42 points en route to the win. Stetson quarterback Alex Pecorelli threw for 217 yards and 3 touchdowns, while Jalen Leary ran for 74 yards and a pair of scores. With just 3 weeks remaining in the season, here's a look at how the standings sit right now. Another busy day in the league is up ahead as 10 teams face off. Here's a look at the schedule.
As we zero in on the Southern Conference, here's what's happening around the SOCON for Week 10 of the FCS season. It's extremely crowded atop the Southern Conference standings. 4 teams with just a single loss in league play. Mercer with the 5-win total, alongside ETSU, VMI, and Chattanooga, who all sit 4-1 to pace the league. Fred Davis had a pair of touchdown runs, part of an 88-yard effort on 15 touches across the course of the day. And leading the Mercer offense, Lance Wise pitched in defensively with a 34-yard pick six, and what would become a 34-point total for the Mercer Bears as they upended the Citadel 34-7. Western Carolina quarterback Rogan Wells threw for 309 yards and 4 touchdowns. He also ran for nearly 50 yards and picked up another on the ground. That in just 2 quarters of work, as the Western Carolina Catamounts triumphed over the Wofford Terriers by a final of 41-21 this past weekend. Chattanooga took care of Furman at home. The Mocs very balanced offensively and led by their defense in holding the Paladins to just a field goal. A 110-yard effort from Tyrell Price, which included a 42-yard run to the Furman 2 on the opening possession of the football game, set the tone for what would ultimately become a 13-3 win, a 10-point victory for the Mocs over the Paladins. And VMI was 1 point better than Samford in a 46-45 shootout. Quarterback Seth Morgan put together a record-setting day. 525 yards of total offense set a new school mark, and his team came from behind under his leadership in the 46-45 win for the Keydets over Samford. This week's Southern Conference slate kicks off at 1 p.m. with ETSU hosting VMI. Wofford is the host school for the battle with Chattanooga. Furman travels across the state line to take on Western Carolina. And it's Samford in Birmingham welcoming in the Citadel in the Battle of the Bulldogs. That one kicks at 3 p.m. to round out a busy weekend of SOCON football. Those are the major storylines from Southern Conference action during Week 10 of the FCS campaign.
It's time for the NEC Football Super 7 Countdown presented by Geico. I'm Ralph Ventry, and I need you to get ready for 7 super plays from Week 9 in NEC football. We start at number 7. Duquesne receiver Cyrus Holder opens the scoring in the annual Keystone State Clash.
Down the far sideline, looking for his man, and Holder has it! It goes for 26 yards, and Duquesne strikes first.
Play number 6, Central Connecticut receiver Tyshawn James lined up in the Wildcat formation. He takes the snap, keeps it himself, gets to the pylon for the CCSU touchdown.
Trying to get the edge, James to the end zone, and he's got it. Rushing touchdown for Tyshawn James, his first rushing touchdown of the season.
Play number 5, St. Francis receiver Katiro Summers snags the go-ahead touchdown in style.
Katero Summers, who scores and puts St. Francis on top, 13-10 with 13:31 to play.
At number 4, it's the LIU connection, Camden Orth to Owen Glasgow. I love the play call, and the execution is on point. Orth to Glasgow, Touchdown LIU. Sharks win 28-14. Play number 3, it's a special one on special teams. St. Francis back up in its own end in the fourth quarter of a one-score game at Duquesne. The snap is low, it bounces, but Jordan Slavey picks it up and booms a 50-yarder to flip the field. We'll have one more from this game at the top of the countdown. Play number 2, back to Merrimack, where CCSU safety Jonathan Cabral Martin comes up to play run defense, forces the fumble, picks it up, and returns it for the CCSU tutty. The Blue Devils go on to win this one 49-21. And in the number 1 spot on the Week 9 Super 7 countdown, it's St. Francis quarterback Justin Slowoski. He comes off the bench and provides the spark for St. Francis.
There to the right. Quarterback keeper, first down and more to midfield, and he could go. Slowoski to the 20, to the 15, and knocked out of bounds inside the 10-yard line.
Wow, what a play. He faked it to the Shields, got everybody to suck in, and there was nobody, and I mean nobody there when he took it to the outside. Look at this. There is nobody. And boy, he showed surprising speed, didn't he?
61 yards.
So that'll do it for the Week 9 NEC Football Super 7 Countdown presented by Geico. I'm Ralph Ventry. I'll see you again next week.
As we enter the month of November, it's crazy to think we only have a couple weeks left of the Southland Conference football season. Week after week, we've seen amazing individual and team performances, with plenty to come in the final stretch of the season. As we get ready for another afternoon full of Southland Conference football, let's take a look back at last week's Football Weekly Awards presented by Geico. After leading his team to their 6th win of the season, UIW's Cameron Ward is named the Offensive Player of the Week for the 2nd time this year. The sophomore signal caller racked up 340 yards of total offense and threw for 4 touchdowns in just 3 quarters in the 49-21 win over HBU. 328 of those yards came through the air as he completed a career-high 73.9% of his passes. The performance marked Ward's 13th 300-yard game in 14 career starts and broke his own program record for single-season touchdown passes with 26 total so far this fall. Earning his first weekly award of his career is Garrett Crawford from Southeastern. The sophomore defensive lineman takes home the Defensive Player of the Week honor after tallying a career-high 8 tackles and 2.5 sacks in the Lions' 23-20 win over McNeese. He currently leads the team in tackles for loss and sacks this season, with 5.5 and 4.5 respectively. And fellow Lion teammate Austin Dunlap is awarded the Special Teams Player of the Week honor for the 2nd time this fall. The sophomore punter tied a program record, averaging 53 yards a punt on 4 attempts in the Lions' victory over the Cowboys. His night was highlighted by a 66-yard boot to the McNeese 6-yard line, marking a career-long and the 6th longest punt in school history. A big congratulations to Cameron Ward, Garrett Crawford, and Austin Dunlap, our Player of the Week award winners. Turning our attention towards this weekend's games, all 6 teams will be in action, highlighted by a top 25 matchup. The day gets underway at noon on ESPN Plus as McNeese hosts Nichols. The Colonels arrive in Lake Charles riding a 2-game win streak, but the Cowboys are looking to break that considering the last time they played at home, they pulled off the upset over UIW. The top 25 matchup kicks off at 2 p.m. on ESPN3 as the 6th-ranked Southeastern Lions and the 22nd-ranked UIW Cardinals meet for the first time this season. In a battle of the Southland's top 2 offenses, the contest will pit 2 of the FCS best quarterbacks against each other, as Walter Payton Award winner Cole Kelly and Jerry Rice Award winner Cameron Ward see whose defense will step up and make the necessary stops. And the day wraps up at 3 p.m. on ESPN+, as HBU and Northwestern State do battle for the 2nd time this season. The Demons won a close first meeting in Houston after rallying for a pair of fourth-quarter touchdowns and are looking for a win on Senior Day, while the Huskies are hoping to bring home their first dub of the season. Again, here's a look at the Southland slate for Saturday. Best of luck to all of our student athletes taking the field this weekend.
Thanks for going all in with us. You can catch every episode of FCS All-In right back here every Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell icon to stay up to date on all the latest FCS All-In content. Until next week, let's be sure to keep the conversation going on social media by using the hashtag FCS All-In.